very good. Well, my name is Ryan Newell. I'm the park superintendent with Story County Conservation, and we'll get more into what that means. But the thing I'm here to talk to everyone about today is our park rangers and our law enforcement program, county conservation. So I'm going to go through and just talk about our conservation program in general, kind of lay that out, and then I'll get into more specifics about what it takes to be a park ranger, and then what our day-to-day and duties often look like. And we'll feel free to keep it pretty casual. So if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to reach out. So our mission at Story County Conservation is to connect people with nature and improving our natural resources, and we want to make Story County a great place to live, work, and recreate. So we try to serve that mission in all of our objectives. This is our program at a quick glance. We manage around 3,400 acres in the county. Almost 2,000 of that is Butler County. We have 144, that doesn't seem quite right, 144 lakes and mountains, maybe. 93 miles of trails. So the trail also includes our water trail. We have around 60 some miles of hard and soft surface trail, which can be for biking, hiking, walking, and equestrian use. And then we also have our Skunk River Water Trail, which goes all the way through our county. So we have 11 water trail accesses so people can get on and off the river in the county. So other than that, it's the typical things you would think of when you think of a county conservation area. Campgrounds, picnic areas, meeting spaces, playgrounds, just all sorts of different forms of outdoor recreation. So we do manage natural resources, that's one of our primary objectives, and we try to manage to promote native vegetation, so native trees and prairie species that are here in Iowa. We want to try to promote those best we can and help compete non-native plants. We also have roadside and drainage ditch management programs, and then, as you know, a large focus around the county lately has been water quality. So we also focus on that. Continuing on with environmental education, we make over 30,000 plus contacts annually here in all the schools, school districts in our county. So this can be anything from public programs to nature camps, to school programs. Maybe the school comes out to the park and looks at an area and learns about a topic. And also we go into the school. Slide that I heard talk about it down here for the subject today, law enforcement outreach. So a lot of people don't know a lot about our county conservation law enforcement program, but we are out quite often. We do some public events, National Night Out, Maximum Marketplace, Coffee with the Top, are just a few examples of the public outreach events that we have participated in. We try to do that annually, and then also a school program. So we'll go into the schools and we'll talk about what people can do out of our parks, or we might teach about native wildlife that you might find in some of our parks. Hunter safety is also something that we offer. So that used to be a lot more in person. Now it's very online. You can still come out for the hands-on learning, firearm handling, things like that. And then mentor hunting, we want to bring a mentor hunting program to life here this fall. So I'll touch base on that a little bit more. But one of the elements we're working on is mentor hunts for youth and people with disabilities. So if you're not familiar with Story County as it lays out here, everything in green is a county conservation property. So if you have a large footprint across the north part of the county here, along the Prairie Rail Trail, you'll see we call this Skunk River, this North Green Belt. The future initiative is more acquisition and protection of the South Skunk River, and then you'll see a hard by nature trail which goes all the way across the south half of the county. So these are all areas that we manage and actively patrol. You'll see also there's a lot of outparks, some of these are public hunting areas, wildlife refuges, and then other parks like the Keep Grove. So all sorts of things to do out in Story County for outdoor recreation. Quick organizational chart, as you can see, we have 25 full-time employees with county conservation, 16 seasonal employees for those opportunities to get involved and use that as an internship opportunity if you're thinking about getting into the career field. So maybe someday. And then volunteers, we try to be actively engaged with our public and our community and just stay involved. Focusing on the field operations here, we have 12 full-time field staff, and then 4 of those positions are law enforcement. So for like myself and past positions, social project ranger and park superintendent, we do the law enforcement, but we also have other administrative tasks such as project management and things like that. And then our park rangers, some of them join us here today, Olivia Vanderhart, who's from Hickory Grove. And then we have another one, Logan Heisel, who's not able to join us today. So we have 4 full-time law enforcement officers, and they're out patrolling, and then when they're not patrolling, they're helping with their general field stuff. So essentially that's project work and making sure our parks are up and running throughout the week, so. Just a few roles, so again, the position can be different, I'll get into the more details on that, but essentially, my position, oversees our field operations, so all our stuff out in our parks. Also our project management, a lot of our larger construction projects and our larger initiatives. Help as part of our planning, grant writing team as well, and then obviously, oversee and participate in our law enforcement program. Our federal project manager, Pat here, not in full uniform, this is what he looks like when he's in the office. Today he had to do some land acquisition homework, so, he's dressed in his casual workwear. Pat leads our grant program, deals with a lot of our projects as well, and then also our planning efforts. Again, our general park rangers, they're law enforcement dedicated positions. They previously used to be more of a traditional park ranger, which in Iowa, historically that meant you took care of the parks, but you also managed them. So obviously you're there as a law enforcement officer, but you're also managing the day-to-day operations. In Story County, our program has gotten too large for that mechanism to work, so we recently switched, and now we have dedicated law enforcement officers that are dedicated towards that job, that duty, and then they fill in with our field operations that are able. And that worked a lot better for us. So what does a park ranger do? And this is always a $1 million question, because you'll get a different answer from anybody you ask. Some people don't know, some people kind of know, but I would like to hear from the crowd. Does anybody have any examples of what a park ranger might do? How about you, buddy? What do you think we do all day? Yeah, anybody else, any focuses? What do you think we focus on as a park ranger? What does that mean to you? Anybody? All right.
That you patrol the park.
Absolutely. So when we're patrolling the parks, park user protection, we want to make sure our users are safe out in their areas, and that they have a good experience while they're out there. Also natural resource and wildlife protection. So we want to protect our native habitats, and also, so sometimes that's from use or abuse from people using those areas, but also our wildlife. We want to protect and make sure that they're not getting abused in our areas, and that they have a quality area to thrive in. And then education, believe it or not, that is probably the #1 thing that we do, and whether that's talking to people through patrolling and actively engaging with them on what they can do, where they can do it, how they need to go about doing that legally, informing them of laws, but also educating them about Story County conservation and all the areas that we have in our county. So one of the things that we run into quite often is people don't know that we do manage like roughly 35 areas around the county. So there's so much more out there that people may not be aware of. So we're constantly educating them. Well, if you really enjoyed this use at this park, you should check out this park or this trail. So education is at the forefront of everything we're doing. We're also educating through our enforcement. We're trying to gain the person's compliance. So often that means explaining the rule to them, why that rule is in place, and then it makes more sense to them, and they're less likely to break that rule, and then you gain their compliance. So education really is at the forefront of everything. I'm not going to read this whole slide, but just quickly, what allows Story County Conservation to have park rangers? The Iowa Code, Chapter 350, allows our conservation board to may alter mandatory regulations for the protection and regulation and control of our parks. So with that, they can designate the director and certain employees as police officers or peace officers in the enforcement of the laws of the state, and also they have permission to violate upon our property. So again, they have the authority to swear us in, create these positions, and then our job is to uphold the law and those. So with that, the 350 code specifically points out fish and game laws, as well as some OHV, which is off-highway vehicles, watercraft, codes as well as that. So continuing on those authorities, what are some other examples of laws that are commonly used in our parks or applied in our parks? Traffic laws for the state of Iowa, they apply to the park roads. Those are considered county roads, even though they're under the conservation department's jurisdiction. Drug and alcohol laws are violations we come across in our parks. And then starting above property building vandalism, the typical niche stuff. We also have the authority to create county rules and regulations. So that's something that the state law doesn't quite cover an area. So specifically, there's some general campground rules for the whole state of Iowa. But then if we want to have specific rules that help protect our campgrounds and make that a better user experience, we can create these county regulations. So often we're enforcing those as well. So why have a county conservation board law enforcement program? So there's 99 counties in Iowa. only roughly 60 counties have law enforcement programs, although there is 99 county conservation departments in Iowa. So every county has their own conservation department. Sometimes that's just the directors, sometimes that's a large staff like us, that's 25. And again, roughly 60 out of those 99 have law enforcement programs. So obviously the benefits, public safety, active crime prevention, we want people to enjoy our parks and have a good user experience. We're dedicated resources and we're out in the parks daily and we live in the parks, so we can have an expedited response. So if there's something emergent happening, even with the sheriff's office, if the call goes in the sheriff's office, they will call us directly and then we can respond immediately. Public interaction and community engagement, that's at the core of everything we do. So whether that's through law enforcement mechanism or just a general education about projects going on in our parks or areas people can recreate, we're out there doing that daily. And then a variety of serviceability. So again, the enforcement piece, which is obvious when you see someone drive like this, but what you might not know is we spend most of our time giving people information and educating them on what they can do, why they can do it, that sort of stuff. And then in-house program expertise provided to the public. So again, we're experts about Story County conservation, so we can talk about all those other great things that we're doing in the county, from water quality to natural resource development, all that good stuff. So, drawbacks. So if you don't have a county conservation program, they can be difficult to start to get buy-in from your community and the boards that supervise you. Cost, obviously, anytime you're doing a new program or initiative, there's a cost of implementation, maintenance of that program, and then if you have any new initiatives, those always cost money as well. And then perception and optics. So some people will see a park ranger dressed like this and they go, boy, that's not what I think of when I think of a park ranger. So maybe they have a negative response to that. Other people that see us out in the parks, usually the ones that are following the rules, they're very happy to see us. They like interacting with us. They feel safe. They will compliment us. Hey, I really feel good about you guys being out in our parks. Thank you for doing that. So perception optics can be a drawback, but also can be a benefit. Like I said, typically in my experience, that depends on the user you're interacting with and if they're following the rules. And then liability, obviously, anytime you outfit somebody with this, there's some liability, but also I think we prevent a lot of liability in our parks by being proactive and handling stuff before it becomes a greater issue. So the basic hiring process to become a law enforcement certified officer in Iowa is lengthy. So you have your interview, preliminary background check through county HR, and then a character investigation by the hiring agency. At that point, you may offer a candidate. We'll do the vision and hearing, which is a law enforcement academy standard, so you have to meet certain standards there. Then we'll do your typical hiring, physical and drug test, and you have a post test, which is like a cognitive test, so essentially making sure that you can make reasonable decisions, that you're reasonably intelligent. And then PI is psychological testing, so they want to make sure that you don't have any psychological issues before you enter the field. Often you feel like you might have one at the end of the shift, or coming into the job, they want you to play. So physical fitness is your push-ups, your sit-ups, your sitting rates, and your running standards, and that's based on your age, and that's through the law enforcement academy as well. And then you're obviously your criminal background check, and at that point you can finally get sworn in by your agency, but then you have to go to the law enforcement academy for 16 weeks and do all that training as well. So it's a very long process. It's a large investment into your officers, so you really want to make sure that you pick high quality and character candidates. Story County, we general law enforcement interview questions, so we'll ask them some standard questions just over the desk and sit and get to know them. And then we have an actual identification table. So we'll set up a big table, and on that table we'll have obvious stuff that they'll run into when they're performing their duties. Maybe it's a rifle or something like that that's taken apart and then the parts of it, maybe it's fishing pole or a heavy fishing pole, but also maybe it's like a wildlife, picture of the wildlife or plants that they're going to run across. We'll also put stuff on that table that will trick them and that we do not expect them to be able to answer. We want to see how do they converse when they are under pressure. How do they respond? Do they make stuff up? Are they honest? All that good stuff. And it gives us a little opportunity to just get to know our officers. And then we'll run them through verbal scenarios to see how they do in a stressful situation. So can they talk their way through a stressful situation? Can they connect with the person they're talking to try to de-escalate and engage in compliance? So qualifications for these positions, you do need a bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree in a conservation related field. And then 2 years of experience. So a lot of us had seasonal internships or worked in other conservation fields without being law enforcement certified, and then maybe go to the law enforcement academy. And then when you get all done with that, you get to your department field training. So Logan and Olivia just have gone through the first portion of our law enforcement training program. We're gonna be out and about this summer in our parks. So So what does it take after you get all that training? Well, it takes continued training. As you know, law enforcement in the United States is ever evolving, and we need to be prepared to deal with different types of social and public items that come across. So we're always continuing training, and you also have to hit certain credentials annually to maintain your law enforcement status as an officer. So, County Conservation Peace Officer Association, there will be a test on that when we're done, make sure you guys can recite that. So anyhow, County Conservation Peace Officer Association is those 160 officers statewide. So Pat and I have actually served on this executive committee here. Here we are recognizing our founding member, Tom Nicholson, who recently retired. Pat's the past president of that committee, and I'm the current acting president of that. So, just always proud to serve our community, but also represent Story County on a statewide level. So, we do firearm qualifications, mental health, adult dependent care, hazmat, CPR, first aid. Those are some examples of the mandatory training that we have to do annually. Also, we train with our sheriff's office because we interact with them quite often. We respond to calls together depending on the scenario. So sometimes that's examples that are field sobriety testing, school response and room clearing, continued behavior and OC, which is your pepper spray. So we utilize our sheriff's office for that training, and they're just a wonderful resource for here. They always take that and help us out to make sure our program can get a high standard. Also, we work with the DNR a lot, so that's our game wardens, or state game wardens. And all sorts of different things too. So we're constantly working with them when legislation changes and new laws come across. They help us update and educate us on the genesis of that and how we can apply it out in the field. So agencies and titles, and this is where all the fun confusion comes in. So you'll notice this says park rangers, list fish, be there, before Jeffrey, for literary family, as he wants them all. So obviously that's a joke. But people have no idea what park rangers are, and it often comes with different titles. So I would like to recognize that, or point out that it basically depends on your agency and your jurisdiction on what your title is going to be, and then what your kind of core focus is going to be. So, again, in Iowa, we have the county conservation system. We also have the state DNR, the park rangers and their parks. So Big Creek, you'll go down to some park rangers that do similar things as we do. So a lot of that's park violations and then fishing game violations. Then you have conservation officers or game wardens. They focus mostly on the fishing game laws. That's what they're really after. That's their core focus. But also they run into other stuff, alcohol, traffic violations, things like that. When you're a certified officer and you run into someone violating the law, you address it. Then you have federal wildlife officers, and a lot of large cities around the United States actually have their own park ranger departments. So like Central Park in New York has that, Philadelphia parks have their own park ranger system. So it's unique depending on your department. And you can just enter whatever titles you want into your department. So even in the county conservation system level, we have park rangers, we have park officers, we have conservation officers. So depending on the county that it serves, they will give you the title they feel appropriate. Yeah, go ahead. We do, and I have a little slide on that at the end. We get into some pretty exciting animal calls. So usually it's for injured or sick animals, typically when we have to interview. But yeah, good question, and we do that. What else? All sorts of funny nicknames out there for us, because again, I think there's confusion about what we do and who we are. So what does park rangers look like? You probably all seen pictures of this with the big hats, and depending on the season, what someone might look like. In Story County, we tend to look like this. We have a vest carrier on the top, and then we wear a uniform shirt under it. We also have vests that go under our shirts, and then you would wear this uniform shirt over the top. So we do that if we want to look a little more professional. This is a little more laid back. It's also nice because it comes off quick and you can take it off. If you need to, and then you have like 20 pounds of stuff that you can remove for yourself. But these are more comfortable and a little more casual. They help you breathe a little bit when we're out in these areas in the summertime with all this stuff on. We're doing a lot of hiking and walking. It's very warm, so we want to make sure that we are comfortable and we can breathe a little bit better. So standard law enforcement equipment, you'll see it varies by department, but our trucks have the lights, sirens, radios, computer printers. GPS software that you are associated with law enforcement. Some departments have pages to do prisoner transports. We don't have those. We utilize our sheriff's office. And obviously our rifle rack. We do have long guns in Story County, so we can refine the items as needed with that. Uniform is typical stuff. Your shirts, your pants, your boots, your bag, all that fun stuff. For all seasons, we're out in any weather. So we work in the winter when it's super cold and you might be outside in blizzard conditions, and we work, law enforcement you're on call 24/7 at all times of day, night, and all seasons, so you gotta be able to respond to everything. Typical protective equipment that you see here, so we have tasers, body cameras. The cameras are great. When you go into a call, you'll hit the record button. It helps protect us as officers because it tells our side of the story, but also helps protect the individual because it tells their side of the story. So it's an honest recollection of what happened. And oftentimes, it'll be good to show what truly happened. And that helps the court process as well. And then medical equipment. So we are first responders. We are not as qualified as like an EMT, but we are more than just first aid and CPR. So we are trained to take on trauma situations such as car accidents. If there's any stabbing or gunshot wounds or things like that, we will be often the first ones on the scene for something like that. And we'll take care of that the best we can until the emergency medical teams arrive. So we do have AEDs in all of our vehicles, so that's something we added. We continue to grow as a program. We've added so much in the last 12 years that I've been around. We really have a strong program that things like that help us respond to any type of situation for us. So again, I mentioned this already, but essentially we live in county park homes. So we are on Farland, Hickory Grove, and Tesla parks. And with that, we're on call 24/7, 365. So we will often have somebody on duty for the day. Depending on the severity of the call, they will typically respond to that call. But if it's an emergent, like a missing person and they need more bodies, or if there's something where there's potentially something very dangerous, they'll call the person on site as well, so you can respond immediately. Patrol schedule, like a routine patrol schedule, we're actually just starting that. Our campgrounds are opening up this weekend already, so we will routinely patrol. Like that's like a typical 8 to 9 hour shift for an officer, and that'll be between April and October. And then if you get called out, we'll get called out outside of that if dispatch needs anything or sheriff's office needs anything. These like Olivia's on this weekend, she's gonna be rolling through our parks daily. And then on busy weekends and holidays, we have 2 rangers out because it's so busy. We have such high use at our campgrounds and our beaches and our outdoor areas that it's just too much for one person. Obviously we're up about our hunting seasons, and then in the winter months, when those hunting seasons wrap up in January, I was straight on ice fishing. So this is an event for the day. What is our focus when we're out there? What are we doing? Well, we want to make as many contacts as we can. We want to talk to people, see what they're doing, see if we can teach them about anything, or if they have any questions for us. We want to educate them on what they can do and where they can do it, and then we want to keep the peace so people have good experience in our parks, and then we enforce the rules for compliance. So if we can get by with some education or maybe a written or verbal warning, we'll try to do that. If we need to raise that up to a citation or an arrest based on the situation to get that compliance, that's what we do as well. But again, ultimately, we're just trying to get compliance in our areas. And then we're on a lot of days. We have to respond to all the use at our parks. It's cool to see a lot of the stuff we work on throughout the years, such as projects and areas, and then see people really using them and enjoying them. That's very satisfying. So campgrounds, we have 2 big campgrounds in our county, Hickory Grove Park and Higgins Lake. Common offenses that we will run into at these areas are camping violations. Again, those are those general county regulations. So maybe someone vandalized a tree, or they tied their dog up to a tree or something like that. Maybe they're being too loud after hours. Just general camping violations. We do get into some domestic assault in there. A lot of times, people have problems in their regular life, and when they come to the parks, a lot of times they'll bring those problems with them. So unpaid stay, public intoxication, other drug and alcohol offenses. So we have that in every park. That's just a product of society. So a lot of people will go to our parks for free to use, pretty low cost, low investment activity to get some outdoor recreation. If maybe people can't afford to go to a public pool or like a movie theater or golf course, but they're going to go out to the county parks and they're going to find other things to enjoy outside. But oftentimes with that comes some big violations. Beaches and water recreation, again, the main areas that we have water recreation is West Peterson Park. There's a beach there, a lot of fishing, angling, paddling goes on there. So canoes, kayakers, paddle, stand-up paddleboards. Hickory Grove is our largest body of water that we manage in the county. It's a 100-acre lake, and that has all sorts of outdoor recreation uses. A lot of times we'll have boating violations and things like that over there as well. We can see some of the larger fishing boats out there. David's Lake in the northeast part of the county, right, Zeering, typical fishing violations south of Farland Lake, just from the northeast of Ames. A lot of times that's just your daytime users. Skunk River, again, have that river going through our county, so we get a lot of paddlers, but also a lot of tubers and college age kids that are potentially having large group parties or violations that come with that. And then a lot of ponds, and usually that just comes out of fishing violations that we're into. So common offensive, I will tell you, 70%, I would say, of our violations come at our two beaches. With Peterson Park and Erie Road, we spend, again, 70% of our time at those areas because that's where we have the largest human interaction. There's a lot of people on a busy day. If it's a holiday and it's 90 to 100 degrees out, you're going to see 150 people on those beaches. You can't see the sand. You can barely see room in the water to swim. The parking lots are all the way full. And a lot of times those scenes can be pretty chaotic. So you get people that might be, maybe they overheat because they're not staying hydrated, but then you get a lot of the alcohol and drug violations that we run into. The majority of our violations are alcohol. Our two beaches have tried to address that through regulation historically, and that there's no alcohol allowed at our two beaches, and we get a lot of pressure from the public. So, along with alcohol comes the loading tax, operating vehicle, intoxicated, there's other drug and alcohol offenses. So you will run into people, a lot of people at these beaches, not a lot, some of the people at the beaches occasionally have a warrant, so you'll run into that. Again, we're out talking to people, we're running driver's licenses through dispatch to the people we're talking to for our safety and the public safety, we're into that stuff. Often again, with the water, those fishing violations, watercraft violations, maybe they don't have a life jacket, maybe they have a boat, but they don't have a fire extinguisher, they don't have it tagged correctly, if it's a certain size, that sort of stuff. People swimming outside the road area, we do take that serious. Our areas, we have had drownings before, so we want to keep people in the swimming area because we know that's less likely for them to drown there, although it is so possible. And then dogs off leash, man, we have dogs off leash everywhere. People come to the park and they may not understand that having your dog off leash, it could respond negatively to like a horse on an equestrian trail, and you buck someone off the horse and the person on the horse could be injured. Maybe it gets in another fight with another dog because that's how dogs can react to each other sometimes. Maybe it's just really scary for another kid that runs up to them. We try to educate through that, but occasionally we have to obviously cite somebody for that. And then the big thing trying to educate. Our natural areas are home to wildlife, and that's what we want to protect in those areas. So we really don't want your dog off the leash pursuing those animals and chasing them out of their home. But those are constant. So we're getting 1,900 acres. Public hunting and story counties, so we shelter from urban and water quality to deer hunting, whether that's archery or shotgun. We do have a lot of regulations for animals or fire, so there's no lead shot. And again, that's to protect wildlife as well as water. So other options that you can get for those, if you're hunting in story counties, steel, there's nothing content. So make sure you seek out that animal before the hunting season starts. Yeah, is that county-wide? That is county-wide on county conservation owned areas. We cannot supersede state regulated areas. So it'll depend on, like, if you took Colo Bogs, for example, who's a state managed area, we can't supersede them. So if they don't require it on their area, we can't require it. But in all of our county owned areas, that is required. And most of the time we try to educate through that. It's a fairly new regulation. So again, it's a lot of education, just telling people what expectations are. It's signed in all of our public hunting areas, making sure people understand and apply. We'll give you a warning and then we'll catch you later. You're probably gonna get a citation for that. Common offenses, again, length violation, possession. So again, you have a daily bag, so whether that's hunting or fishing, you have a daily amount, you can caption in possession, how many, like, is it in your freezer, how many you have total, on your person or your home. Trespassing, felons, you do running your checking licenses, you'll have a felon, who's been released, but they don't have their firearms restricted. They still obviously want to hunt, so we're in that kind of time. Otherwise, a lot of times it's just a little kind of orange. Maybe they don't wear an appropriate color. But other calls, look at that wildlife call. So we've had some pretty exciting wildlife calls. I remember I was pretty fresh into the job, and I got called to pick up an injured bald eagle out of a ditch, and there was a whole crowd of people watching me pick this thing up. And I put on big welding gloves, and I had a blanket to put over it so I could pick it up. And I was terrified because the talons on that thing are long and strong, and they don't. Believe it or not, there's no special school you go to where they train you how to pick up animals. So it's kind of like, oh, you're a park ranger, you can do this. And you kind of just figure it out and handle it the best you can. But sometimes you run into stuff like, I don't like snakes. I've taken snake calls. Like, I do not like snakes. I do not want to pick them up. I'm fine if I see them and know where they're at, but I don't like touching them. You'll run into stuff like that. You try to be brave and handle it. So We do also wildlife calls. Again, oftentimes it's maybe there's a deer that's been hit by a car and it's suffering, and we have to make the call if it's worth putting that animal down, if there's anything salvageable on that, maybe go to a hush program, something like that, which,
What's that?
so a hush program is like you go to a food pantry. So you take it to a locker, they would process what they can out of it, and then that would get donated to a locker or to a food pantry. They have vehicles and property, we have people that come and dump stuff at our parks, say it's cheaper than taking it to the landfill or paying to get rid of it. The appropriate way is they take county parks and town. We try to crawl into those violations and figure out where it came from, who did it, and then follow up with them, cite them, any liquidated damages that are associated with that. Missing persons, we often do get missing person calls, and we work very well with our sheriff's office as well as our volunteers or the rescue team. We know our public areas better than anybody else. We know the trails, where they lead, that sort of stuff. So when we have missing person calls specifically in a certain area, I mean, we have parks in every part of the county, so oftentimes that's the first place people will go. If they want to get away from people, or maybe potentially, they can be suicidal, or maybe someone's just lost, maybe they're diabetic and disoriented, that sort of stuff. So we do get in person calls, we work with our sheriff's office quite well. Training with our sheriff's office annually on finding, running through practice scenarios so we can be sure when that time comes. We do occasionally run into the that's in parks, and that's unfortunately part of the job. It's a reality of a law enforcement job. As you know, there's a lot of stress and strains on society, and a lot of times people will go to parks whether they want to get away from people, they want to be by nature, they want to be a place that's maybe a little more calming, and we'll take those situations out into the park. So we've seen a lot more of this increase in the pandemic. I think just in general, society might be a little more stressed. Again, we have had previous drownings on some of our areas. Usually they accidental overdose that someone's out there participating in their overcoming. But we run into that occasionally. It's part of the job, you have to be prepared to handle. Typically we will be like a first on the scene or something like that, but then we'll secure the scene and then wait for sheriff's office. They're the professionals, they're detectives, are going to figure out what really happened and whatnot. So we know the levels of our own skills, and we'll rely on our neighboring agencies to help us out with that. So speaking of our partner agency, our biggest partner agency, we're a county conservation law enforcement program, where we have county sheriff's office, who's just fabulous to work with. We have a very professional and high standard law enforcement agency. So we work with them quite often, and they're always great at taking us under their wing and helping us out. So we really appreciate that. And there's a close working relationship with them. But we share law enforcement with them, so we're on the same computer system that they're on, so we can have that interagency communication on what they're running into and what we're running into. We will try to maintain our equipment the same as them. So if they upgrade and get these body cameras, we will upgrade and get those same body cameras. That sort of stuff. We have taken the items that relate to our department out of their policy handbook, and we operate at the same standard, or try to operate at the same standard that they do. Also, again, we're working a lot on training, so whether that's room clearing or taser training or all that, they're very resourceful for that. We back them up on their calls if it's a dangerous officer situation. We're out in the general county just like they are, so we'll back them up, they back us up, they do our transports for us as well. So again, we really, although we're out focusing on parks violation and fish and game, if we need to run in and help with a missing person or something like that, or if someone needs backup because it's a dangerous situation, we're law enforcement, we're all in the same field, and we want to make sure we take care of each other and we all go home at the end of the day. So we definitely don't be square out. I also work with our DNR. We get into something more than a simple violation, and there needs to be a full investigation for a fish and game violation. We'll pass that off to our cohorts at the state level, and then obviously the agency around Story County. So oftentimes violations will be in multiple jurisdictions, so it might start out in the county and it might end in one of these cities. So we work with those agencies as well, just for sharing information and then addressing problems. So moving forward, what's on the future docket for Story County Conservation Law Enforcement? Again, we're going to continue focusing on resource protection, wildlife protection, working with the people in our county as well problems. If we get complaints about areas that can be improved, we factor that into not only our project management, can we find a solution, but also our enforcement. Can we maybe tweak the rule or change it to make it a better experience and address the problem better? So working with people, we're in the people business. I wouldn't have guessed that when I got into the conservation field, but that's ultimately what it is. You're in the people business. Quality city recreation is our ultimate goal. We want people enjoying nature, connecting with nature, getting outside, in Story County. And then future things that will affect us, so land acquisitions and get more outdoor recreational properties in Story County. There's more oversight, more enforcement. So, again, we have 4 officers in our county, and sometimes there are days where I think it's not enough. Research continuum in that time. Import hunting, that's something we really want to get into with the public. So that will be at Sleepy Hollow, which is over by Ada Hayden, and that'll be archery opportunities. So it'll be for youth, people under 18, and it'll be for people with disabilities. So we'll have like a hunting blind out there, and you can schedule dates with our officers to go out and have a mentor hunt, and they can take you through that whole process and show you how those all state laws and licenses will apply to that. But we're really excited to bring that opportunity forward for people that maybe don't know how to get into that or can't do that on their own. Cabins, things like that, as we have in the mini resort parks, it just adds more oversight. So you'll run into parties and fights and whatever else you may get called into. So again, that just puts a little more oversight on our law enforcement and then expanded camping. We have talked about expanded camping in Story County. So if and when that happens, that's a lot more on our plate as we manage those campgrounds. So with that, here's my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions or share any stories if anyone wants to know more. How about you, pal? Do you got any other questions for us? No, what do you think about being a park ranger? Is it interesting? Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
Any notable wildlife successes in the time you've been here?
Oh, that's a good question. So yeah, I mean, I think anytime we add property, specifically, maybe it's in a floodplain or somewhere that it was naturally that type of habitat, we will see. So I've been around for 12 years, and as we protected the greenbelt more and managed the resources within that greenbelt, which is the river corridor, specifically we call it the greenbelt, but it's north of Ames. We've seen wild turkeys come back a lot more. So now you'll see a lot more wild turkeys. Traditionally, they were more in the north part of the county, and now they actually migrate all the way down. You see them outside of Ames quite often, specifically along those river areas. So yeah, definitely seeing stuff like that. Those corridors are important because they're connected. You're not getting fragmented pieces of property that are surrounded by like maybe agriculture or a city, which is detrimental to wildlife traveling to and from. When you get those connections along those corridors, it's really, really beneficial to improved wildlife habitat and then that flora and fauna. So like all your plant species, animal species are going to be more productive because it's part of a bigger picture. So we really focus on acquiring properties that are attached to our existing properties, and then typically we want to attach that to maybe water quality or floodplain, like that. We're not competing with agriculture by any means. So. But yeah, we have seen some successes. So we do in the next 10 years. I think you're going to see a focused initiative on the south half of the county, south of Ames along the river. We want to continue providing floodplain protection, and with that, so if you acquire a chunk that's normally flooding, it's right next to the river, you can put that back into prairie, and then you can have public hunting on it. There's wildlife viewing, there's nature photography. Sometimes you can connect the trail through there as well. So there's lots of outdoor rec opportunities that come with that land acquisition, and it's serving nature.
So part of the question comes from over my lifetime. Deer, of course, everybody sees deer. I saw probably one deer before I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
Second one I hit.
Yeah.
The eagles.
Yep.
The
Canadian geese.
The swan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had a mink run through our neighborhood the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We live near Ada Hayden, so
very cool.
otters, beavers.
Yep.
That was not in anybody's daily experience. And I'm kind of old, but
sure.
But over that period of time, it's just radically different.
Yeah, I think people are more aware, and then obviously, when you can do things like buffer systems and like stuff like CRPM, or obviously where agriculture really dominated the state. Anytime you can get more natural vegetation around those items or along those items to create more habitat, improve water quality. We think it's a win, and wildlife certainly, benefits from that. But yeah, I think Pat can talk to you for 3 days about waterfalls, the passion it is, but, certainly seen changes over the years and historical changes. He can probably touch on that better than I can, not to age him, but he's got a little more experience than I do. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, so if you're concerned that someone has, been overfished or has too many pheasants, do you actually look in their freezer? Like,
So typically at that point, you're gonna want, I mean, you can if you have probable cause, but our attorney's office will tell you wanting to get a warrant before you go do that. At that point, we're gonna call in our game wardens. So that doesn't happen too often. Typically, it's a on-site violation. And you're gonna, deal with it at that time, and then you're gonna let the game warden know. So if the game warden can connect it to a bigger picture case, oftentimes there's some stuff behind the scenes that we might not be running into. They're gonna follow up with that and put it as part of their bigger picture. So no, is it us going into houses and digging in freezers? It's not. It's not. So if we ever did it, it'd be as like an assisting agency on a follow-up to an initial call. But we leave, like, again, we know our limits and we try to leave that to the experts. Our state game wardens are the experts on that scenario. So, good questions. Does anybody else have any further questions or wonder about park rangers and what we do? Very good. Thanks everybody for your time and appreciate you showing up.